20-7 into a very special finance time. I am Technical Sergeant Conn, Flight 5 instructor. Today we are honored to receive some perspective from Chief Master Sergeant Retired Bob Wooden and Chief Master Sergeant Retired Harold Hutchison, who served in the Air Force for a combined time of over 60 years. Chief Wooden and Hutchison will share their wisdom and experience on the topics that you want to speak about. Please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions throughout the conference time. Please join me in giving a warm welcome, wherever you may be watching from, to Chief Master Sergeant Wooden and Chief Master Sergeant Hutchison.
Thank you. Hey, buddy, you want me to start or you want to start?
No, go ahead, brother.
All right. So listen, you all already know who we are through our resume, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself after the Air Force. So, you know, because there's a lot of things on there that you don't get to see, right? You don't get to see behind the curtain. So I would tell you, went to combat a couple of times. I am diagnosed with severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, you know, all of the things that nobody wants to have and all the things that everybody hears about and everybody worries about suicide and all those other things. Those are things that I deal with on an absolute daily basis. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm really trying to get this light out of the way here, folks. One of the things that I've really been trying to do is get the word out, work with folks, airmen, the VA centers, several private organizations in regards to what needs to happen with our military. We've seen a decline in the numbers wanting to come in the Air Force or stay in the Air Force. We've seen a uprise in military active duty suicides as well as veteran suicides. So now I really pay attention to both sides. When we hear the 22 a day, we have surpassed that 22 a day, and you know, and it's pretty sad. But we'll go through today as we're talking. You all can ask us anything you want, absolutely anything, and we're not gonna, as Chief Hutchison said, we're not going to bullshit you. We're going to tell you the way it is and the way that we feel about things. The request for what you all wanted to talk about, I'll be honest with you, a little disappointed. Our airmen today, little airmen, and when I say that, I'm not talking our tech sergeants and below, or little airmen are saying people aren't listening to us, but I'm not positive that they're actually talking to us. I gave you all an opportunity to tell us whatever you wanted to think about, and no kidding, only 4 people out of, right now on the screen, there's 315 of you, on 333 of you. So, you know, if you have the opportunity to have a platform to speak, to figure out what you want, you got to take it, y'all. There is not a lot of opportunity for that somebody's going to come up and say, what do you want? We'll say it. As far as in social media and all these other things, hey, we're listening, what do you need? But I'm not positive that we're actually getting it sometimes. But when you get the opportunity to speak and to engage us, we need you to do that. You know, when it comes to the things that people talked about, for me personally, and I sent them over to Chief Hutchison, PTSD, depression, anxiety, the impacts of social media, those were the big ones. And then here a couple days ago, I got one for toxic leadership and eval. So I believe that we'll kind of go through those in that particular order based on the amount of time that we have. Buddy, over to you.
Hey, so first of all, I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you. So, like Bob, ironically, on September 15th, 2010 was probably the worst day in my military career for me. We lost a young man in combat, and so today's a tough day for me, but being able to spend time with all of you makes it a little easier. So I don't want to, waste any time. I want to give you your time. So let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. And like Bob said, anything and everything. All right, over to you guys.
Well, I'll start since no one else is. one of the things that when I talk about PTSD, I'm in a lot of different groups as far as the VA is concerned, but a couple private organizations. And, you know, if you like motorcycle riding, if you like fishing, if you like hunting, if you like walks on the beach, there's all of these private organizations that are based on just about everything that somebody wants to do, so that they can get a group of you together so you can actually open up and talk about your things that you're dealing with. You know, everybody does not, there's 315 folks on here, and I'll bet you probably a third deal with PTSD, and the rest of you may say, well, you know, I don't get it, I don't understand it. Or you have dealt with people that have dealt with it before, you know, and it's scary to deal with some of those folks. To include me. Look, let me give you a little history real quick. So in 2006, I was injured in combat. I was going from a tech sergeant to a master sergeant at the time, and I literally, my whole life wanted to be a first sergeant. When I got injured, I didn't want to seek any help. I'm okay. So I didn't tell anybody the garbage that I was dealing with. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anybody. Fast forward, I ended up becoming a first sergeant. I get back from Baghdad. I become a first sergeant, and I start dealing with things with people. And I got so invested in trying to take care of people, I totally forgot myself. Fast forward to 2017. I go through the ranks. Well, first, I didn't get help when I was a first sergeant because, you know, I thought I wouldn't be a first sergeant anymore. Then I made senior master sergeant as a first sergeant, and then I was going back to my career field. Didn't want to get help because I couldn't. Then maybe I couldn't wear senior master sergeant. And then miraculously, by God's grace, I made chief. It was the craziest thing, man. Chiefs do not go get help. We're the baddest mothers on the planet. No, you know, we know everything, we do everything, and nobody needs to think that we have any issues. So 2017, I'm sitting in my office at the Peterson NCOA Academy, and one of my instructors, I'm there for a year, and what happens? One of my instructors that has worked for me for a year walks in, and I looked at her, I knew who she was, and I forgot her name. The mental things that were going on in my head, trying to block everything and put everything in the back of my head, it started taking my memory away. And it had been doing this for probably about 4 years at this point. But now it's to the point where, no kidding. I went home, I told my wife I need to get some help. And I started getting help at that time through the Wounded Warrior Recovery Center there at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs. And that's my story, how I got to where I am. Over to you.
Hey, so I see Tech Sergeant Bartlett, his question is, with the surge in suicide rates, what do you think the Air Force as a whole can do to reduce and eventually eliminate high rates of suicide? You know, unfortunately, I don't think there's a program as an individual piece that's going to solve this. We got a lot of smart people that have looked at this, and they have thrown a lot of different programs at this. So I think it's going to take more than one program. It's going to take a lot of things. One of the things that I would tell you that helped me, and like Bob, I deal with PTSD, one of the things that I always talk about that really saved me from a lot of the times where I was not doing so well was I had a connection with somebody or someplace or something. And I think a connection really makes a difference. So I tell people all the time, where's your smoke pit? And what I mean by that is when I was a young airman and I was going through some troubles in my life, 2 kids, no money, you know, very little money, dealing with my marriage not being where it should be. You know, I had a lot of things going on, trouble with my finances. My boss at the time, he didn't know any of that, and I didn't share it with him, but eventually over time, it did. And the reason is every day he used to go, hey man, let's go to the smoke pit. And I'd go, at first I was like, hey sir, I don't smoke. And he's like, I didn't ask you to smoke. Come out to the smoke pit. And when we were at the smoke pit, he'd ask me questions, not about work. It was just normal questions about, life and things like that. And we just talked. And it wasn't creepy where it was 100 questions in one time. This happened over time, right? And over time, every day, maybe sometimes twice a day, we'd be at the smoke pit just talking. And eventually over time, I developed a trust with him. And with that trust, it opened up the opportunity for me to be able to share what I was going through. So as I started to share what I was going through, then he was able to then start helping me get through some of the things I was getting through. So I would say to you, in today's environment, where's your smoke pit? And it may not be a smoke pit, but it may be the conference room, it may be your office, it may be a picnic table, it may be something. And so I would tell you, where's your smoke pit? Get to know your airmen and develop a trust. Because let's be honest, no one's going to share their intimate, darkest issues with someone they don't trust. And no program is going to develop trust. So, you're not going to save them all. Don't get me wrong. All right. You gotta be able to, develop a relationship with as many airmen as you can. Because again, your time is valuable and there's not, all the time in the world to be able to do this, but do what you can. And if it's one person, right? There's Sergeant Raylan to this day is retired in New York. He probably really has no idea what impact he did and saved me on my life and changed my vector just because we spent time at the smoke pit. All right, over.
Hey, Sergeant Goldsby, let me see here. What is it? Fletch Goldsby Hall from Nellis. He is just talking about stigma and the stigma, as you and I, buddy, have talked about a lot. So I'll tell you, I wanted you all to think about what I just said for a minute, but then I'm gonna bring it back to it. So what I said was I didn't want to get help because, right, and I see a bunch of questions, and I think that some of those are coming from my conversation. I wanted to be a first sergeant so bad I didn't want to get help. That stigma, man, I might not be a first sergeant. And then senior master sergeant and chief. I'm going to tell you, yes, I made chief. I think I was a pretty decent first sergeant. All I care about was my people, and I got so involved in my people that I forgot about other things. So there was a huge cost, and that cost was a lot of my family. I mean, I am dealing with so many after effects for family. I mean, I've been married to my wife for 32 years this year, which is absolutely amazing that she stuck with me, especially dealing with the things that she had to deal with because of my PTSD. My career, the stigma, losing security clearances and everything, I'll be honest with you. I never changed as far as what my goals were and what I wanted. I focused on those things and I still achieved those things. And I believe that if I would have got help, maybe it would have held me up for a while. Maybe I needed to pump the brakes on what was going on, and I needed to get right what was in my head, because I'm going to tell you, if I would have dealt with the things that were in my head from 2006 to 2008, if I would have dealt with it then, the nightmares and the things that I deal with now, I think they'd be gone. I think I would have dealt with them. I wouldn't have the issues that I have right now. I push my son and my daughter away. I'm rekindling relationships with them every day. My son had significant issues just because dad wasn't there all the time. Just getting in trouble and those kind of things. So what I'll tell you is, yes, there is a stigma. Yeah, and there is no way we will ever get away from that stigma. Because people are worried about pride. It's pride. I think that I'm going to lose my clearance. I think that this is going to happen. And in some cases, I'll be honest with you, it does. I've seen leadership go totally opposite way. You can't be promoted because of this, or you need to deal with this before I can give you a 5 on your EPR. I'm not going to stratify you because of this. You know what? Again, maybe those are things that will help you grow. And it's all about attitude. If you can have the attitude that I'm going to succeed no matter what, but sometimes when you get in this spiral of this depression and this anxiety, I know how hard it is to get out of that. Chief Hutchison knows exactly how hard it is to get out of that. And those connections that Chief was just talking about are absolutely imperative. You know, I'll be honest with you right now. Chief is my connection right now. We talk all the time because, man, the things, again, I'm dealing with crap from 2006. I am way better, but sometimes I just need to talk, and sometimes I just need a vent. And he's the guy that's there for me. And, you know, if it slows you down, then it slows you down.
Hey, so Matt, Special Agent Matt, so first of all, thanks for what you do. That's a tough job, having to deal with almost all of the deaths in the Air Force, and that is traumatizing in itself. But you know, again, Matt, I think that there's not going to be one program. And my advice to you and everyone else is make this a home game. Do what you can where you're at. You know, it bears repeating, man. If there's one person you can make a difference in their life, then when you retire, man, that's a huge accomplishment to be able to go back and say, you know, someone was dealing with whatever it was, and I was there for them. So, Matt, my advice would be, you know, make this a home game, man, and do what you can. And then hopefully the Air Force and others, you know, they're investing a lot of money. You know, one thing you can say about the Air Force is they're not stopping on this. But again, I just don't think there's one program that's going to solve this, and we have to make it personal and we have to do what we can to make it happen. So appreciate the question, Matt. Okay, Bob.
All right. Hey, so Tech Sergeant Steve Blake, let me read this question out loud to you. There's a whole stream of them, buddy. So it says, we talked about being genuine leaders and meeting our airmen where they are at. So, you know, kind of hard with COVID right now. So, you know, hopefully you're calling and talking to them and doing those kind of things. When so many leaders are concerned with themselves, with pushing the Air Force, man, I should put hold on, let me put my glasses on. All right, there we go. Now I can see. When so many leaders concern themselves with pushing the Air Force narrative and using the latest buzzwords, innovation, wicked problems, speed relevance, etc., how can we ensure that we're staying genuine and not being perceived as just another Air Force yes person? Okay, hey, that is an absolutely great question. So I got to tell you, as Chief Hutchison just said, the genuineness comes from yourself. It comes from inside you. Now, you can, you know, I was a butthole a lot of times. And again, I know there's people that used to be in my chain of command in here as I see their names and they haven't said anything. But I was real. I wasn't worried about taking care of this person over this person. If you earn the right to be recognized, then you recognize them. If you are a person that look, man, I am really worried about Buddy, and I don't know what's going on with him, but I need to go to his house and figure out what's going on, or I need to call him and see what's going on. You know, it is important for you to focus on you. Your sphere of influence starts right here, right here. This is where it starts. Hopefully you can see that. That's your heart. And then from there, everything else shouldn't matter to you. Yes, you may want to make rank. Yes, our Air Force leaders want to become folks. But I want to ask you something, and I meant to send you the link before today. I wanted everybody to watch. But I hope that you all watch the conversation between our SEAC and his wife. You know, he talks about, for him as a young man, as a special operator, he talks about himself, the problems that he had, and the fact that maybe he didn't deal with things as the way that he should, and his wife kept pushing him. And when he interviewed for this to be our SEAC, and he's an absolutely amazing man, I will tell you that he was seeking mental health assistance. Now, think about that. Our highest enlisted person in the United States military was seeking mental health assistance when he interviewed to become that person. That right there is a huge message. That just says that, you know what, there are bad leaders out there. There may be people that are hurting you at your level, but you know what? Just push on. You can't do anything about the things that you can't do anything about. Your sphere of influence, you take care of the people you can. Don't coddle, don't baby. Take care of them the way that they need to be taken care of. Over to you, buddy.
Hey, so Jared from Dover, his question is what advice would you offer to young tech sergeants and young master sergeants that are challenged with bridging the gap between old school leadership and the big Air Force initiatives of open communication and innovation, specifically with regard to navigating a very political climate of board-only senior NCO promotions? Hey, so Jared, I'm always leery of old school leadership lingo, and it happens in every generation. You know, when Bob and I were young tech sergeants and master sergeants, we talked about old school leadership and kind of labeled that. I think they called it the old brown shoe or
brown shoe
leadership. So my thing is some of that old school leadership wasn't very good. Some of the old school leadership was good. I kind of bridge this question more of, I look back at my leadership, good and bad, and learn from both of them. And I tried to be the leader that I wanted them to be for me. And so, my thing is I'm very careful about that labeling, but I do want good leadership. So I try to encourage folks to be honest and upfront, and again, you can be a great leader, but if I get a sense that you don't care about me and all you're worried about is getting promoted, then I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to kind of be around you. And those are the type of leaders that I think are causing part of the problem that we have with airmen not wanting to talk and communicate, is because who wants to talk to those people? They're only worried about getting promoted. They're worried about themselves. You don't trust them. So yeah, I think, with everything going on, especially in today's environment, where, let's be honest, the folks that you're leading have grown up in a generation where they probably spent more time on their phone than they did probably communicating with the others. So you have to be careful with them and figure out how do I lead this type of a generation of airmen. And then the last thing, your last question was about senior NCO board only. I'm a fan of the board only because, quite honestly, I think it gives supervisors an opportunity to really put on the EPR what you mean. If you want to affect a board, put it on the EPR. And mean it, right? I wasn't a fan of, testing is good, right? But I think in today's environment, you can really, if we do the EPRs right, we really should be able to affect who gets promoted and who doesn't. Now, if we don't do the EPRs right, then it's our own fault. So hope that helps, Jared, and I appreciate the question.
Hey, Jared, and I'll throw this in there too. So I grew up, I am dyslexic. I'm getting a little better. You can see maybe I was just blind the whole time instead of being dyslexic, and I didn't want to admit it. I don't know. But I would tell you that because of testing, it held me up from making senior master sergeant. It took me a long time to make it. But if it would have been board only, I would have made it my first time. From the day that I became a first sergeant until I made senior master sergeant, I was the #1 test score and board score, or not test score, board score at the bases that I were at as a first sergeant. So with that, more than likely, I would have been promoted a lot earlier. So, but then again, if you look at the other side of that, there are some of you that are concerned with, well, everybody doesn't write EPRs good. Everybody, they have a better advantage than I do. I would tell you, when I write EPRs, and if there's anybody that's ever been in the 726 or any of the places that I've been, I always get a group of people together to write the EPRs. In my mind, we were never competing against each other within our squadron. We were competing against the rest of the world out there, and we would write amazing EPRs, as we would go through. So we always had very good EPRs and good board scores. It was the test scores that was hurting folks. So I'll leave that at that. And buddy, I think we're going to answer a couple more questions, and then we will reply to all of them. So if you all keep pumping the questions in, we will respond to you, all of you, by email with our answers for those questions. But there's a few topics that other folks want to talk about as well. So, hey, Sergeant Scheuerman, I believe, from Dover, says, my question is in regards to mental health. Let me put my glasses back on base. Using military one source is a great and easy way to set up off-base help for my wife. But active duty members are denied help, and in this case, there was not anyone available on base for 8 months. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I dealt with that in the very beginning when I started seeking help. But I will also tell you that we used one source. Lisa, my wife, my son Storm, I got help for them for military one source, and guess what the cool thing about that was? And maybe it's different with you right now, so please let me know. Come on the screen and tell me if things are different. When my wife went in there, my wife would say, hey, I want Bob in here. I want him to hear what I'm dealing with. And why? Because most of the time it was because of my PTSD stuff. So they would bring me in, and then guess what? That if you had a good person sitting in front of you, they were mediating and they were talking back and forth. So really, even though it was the help for my wife, we were both getting it based on the provider that was sitting in front of us. And with my son, my goodness, my son's provider was absolutely amazing. And Lisa and I had so much input as we were sitting there with them that it was like it was a family counseling. And oh, by the way, family counseling is allowed through military one source if you have children. If you don't have children, then it's just the spouse, and then you got to kind of work that, but the spouse has to invite you in. So Jared, please, I said Jared, Tech Sergeant Scheuerman, please let me know. Pop up on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fortunate enough with the spouse with marital counseling. They invited me in, but for individual help, I was always denied military one source. I wasn't able to seek it off base, and being on base, I had to be a provider from mental health, but then they were full. So I would just deploy every year. So it would just kind of get pushed off year by year.
Right. Yep, I understand. So the thing is for the most part, you should be able to go to other bases. For me, when I got my assistance wasn't at Peterson. They started to help, and then they realized that how bad I was, plus the fact that I had TBI and had some other things for my injury. They sent me over to Fort Carson. So if there's other bases, to include Guard and Reserve bases, there's a lot of times you can go over to those facilities as well, but you have to request it, or you can request to go out of a certain range to be able to go see another military provider. Today, it ought to be easier with Zoom and these things. I'll tell you, I see my provider often now, but it's over Zoom. Well, the VA piece of it. And then my appointments with my docs on Eglin Air Force Base are through Zoom. So this pandemic has made it a little bit easier to be able to see folks. So you can see people from other bases. So, maybe you can ask that question. But I'm sorry that you have to deal with it. And I'll tell you, the last AFSA pack, when I talked to General Brown and one-on-one, I talked to him just about that. We need more mental health providers, because if you're going to say our suicide rates are going up, but then I can't see you for 8 months, because here's the deal. Realistically, if you have issues, the old adage, you got to ask somebody if they're going to kill themselves 3 times, or you think about suicide 3 times. I would tell you there is some truth to that. Not everybody is going to answer to say, yes, man, I'm really thinking about it. but they may answer other things for you. But that third or fourth time, and when you're going on and you're filling an online thing, most of the time you're going to answer everything hunky-dory unless you really are the person that really wants help.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for answering that. What's your first name?
Daniel.
Daniel. All right, Daniel. I won't screw that one up again.
All right, so what do you want to do something different, Dan Bob?
Yeah, let's move on to the depression and anxiety piece and kind of bring that into social relationships.
Hey, so along that line, Adam Baker from McDill, his thing was about depression being a lifestyle disease or a disease civilization. Do you believe depression is disease? If so, do you believe it can be cured? How? Adam, I'm not really sure I'm smart enough to figure out whether it's the disease or not, but what I would tell you is this. It is an illness, and it affects those from a lot of different ways. I'm one of those ones that's affected by it. I don't believe there's a cure for PTSD. I think you can manage triggers. And all of the counseling and the things that I've gone through and the folks that I've talked to both professionally and personally, I think it's with you for your whole life. It's just managing triggers. And really for me, it's in that case. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the World War II and the Korean War and Vietnam War, these gentlemen are up in age and they're still dealing with it, right? And it really is just about, in my opinion, comes down to managing the triggers. And so I don't think we'll ever cure it. It's just a matter of getting those folks to first be brave and strong enough to ask for help. That's number one, right? And number two is what Bob and all of you were just talking about, is having a mechanism to get people to help. And then it is a personal thing to manage the triggers. So thanks for the question, Adam.
Yep, absolutely. So the connections, you're going to hear it, and I just see that somebody just put something on here in regards to doing more with less and reducing our effects in the military. Look, this is where we are. This is the hand that we've been dealt. You can say right now, a lot of you are going to have to re-enlist. Some of you had to extend to take this class. You made the choice to do that. If you absolutely hate the way things are right now, unless you think that you can make a difference, then get out. I think it's that simple. If you think, there was a point in my career that as a first sergeant, I knew mentally. My wife did not know. My wife did not know, other than her knowing that I was dealing with shit. My wife did not know what was really going on in my head. And I was going to get out. We would go for walks. And I said, man, that's it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And really, I was talking about what was going on in my head, but I felt that the Air Force was the trigger for that. And she said, you won't forgive yourself. Who's going to take care of airmen the way that you take care of them? And then all of a sudden I started thinking, man, that was my driving force. Okay, look, if I get out, nobody's going to do what I can. Or nobody is going to take care of folks the way I can. Because I'll tell you, when you all talk about toxic leaders and leaders that weren't doing the things that they're supposed to, man, somehow I had those leaders all the way through my career. And I was always miserable until I either outranked them or they got out. It was just that simple. But then I started thinking about attitude. Man, if I could just take care of my circle, my airmen, I'm the NCOIC. Look, I can take care of them. And no matter what, I will go to battle. I will go to war for these 9 people or 34 people or however many it was. And as long as they're within my sphere of influence and I can do something about it, I would never say, hey, the commander says, or the chief says, or the first sergeant says. If they told me that, that's the way we dealt with it, and I'd go back and re-engage with my group on how we were going to meet the goal and still try to make people happy. And oh, by the way, people are not going to be happy all the time. So you bring that in. Now you have a bunch of folks that are depressed and they're anxious all the time. It's really hard to deal with those folks unless you can try to get them help. And the trigger to get them help is for them to have that connection with you, to know you and to understand you, and to be able to say, look, man, I see you come to work and your eyes are baggy every day. You're not sleeping. Someone just said, do our leaders understand that people aren't sleeping, that, you know, what are the effects of PTSD? I would tell you our leaders absolutely do. Chief Bright, Chief Bass is a dear friend to me. I know that you all spoke with her not too long ago. I would tell you, our chief of staff, they absolutely know what the impacts are, and they are trying their best to deal with it. But when you don't have enough mental health providers and whatnot, how do you deal with it unless you can do certain things on your own? And a lot of things are on your own. Find organizations, connect with other people. Sometimes that connection is with civilians outside that don't know anything about the military, because you jump on a bandwagon of people bitching about the military and how bad it sucks. Well, at that point, neither one of you are good for each other. You got to find and surround yourself by people that are positive and they're influential and they're taking care of one another. So let me build up a scenario for you. You have an airman. Airman has this girlfriend, thinks she is the absolute greatest person on earth. They go through this relationship. Man, he asked her to marry him. She said yes. And man, everything is good. I got to deploy. He deploys, comes back. Things aren't so good. They don't get married. 5 months, they break up. Dude's depressed. Something happened. PTSD, anxiety, depression has hit him, not just because of his deployment, because the love of his life, that his soulmate is gone. And she left him while he was deployed. So he's trying to deal with all of this stuff. A year later, what pops up in his Facebook page? Talk to me, Goose.
That Facebook memory.
That Facebook memory. Man, they're getting married, and we don't know when we're getting married, but this is the love of my life, and we're so happy. And he sees their picture, and they're super excited. And this dude is in the absolute worst place that he could ever be. And social media just brought him to the center, the epicenter of what's about to happen. And if somebody doesn't know that airman, if somebody doesn't have that connection with that airman that has been helping that airman deal with that situation, because I'll bet you that person is also friends and also saw that feed pop up. But I'm going to tell you what happens? I see it all the time. Oh, dude, man, she sucked. Or, yeah, you screwed this one up. Am I wrong?
Hey, so Michelle F., I saw you put a note out there about, again, there's another topic about, people not being able to get the help they seek. Here would be my advice. The squeaky wheel usually gets fixed sooner. And it's unfortunate that we're in a situation where we have people that are seeking help and then can't get the help. So what I would say in those situations is this is a time when you should use the chain of command and elevate this as high as you can go, step by step, to seek the help that you or whoever needs it. And that's something that we should never stop doing, right? Our first job as leaders is to take care of our people, first and foremost. And in this case, when someone needs something and has the courage to say that they need it, we should make sure that they get it as soon as possible. And that may require some bold leadership to not take no and to elevate it, because I'll be honest with you, I can't imagine being the command chief or a chief or a leader at a base if someone came to me and said, hey, Airman Snuffy has said that they need help, but we can't get them in. It may take a week or 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks to get an appointment. I get that, right? But at least being able to get an appointment, I think that should be something that in 2020 the Air Force or the military can do, even if it's an outside organization. So that's one area where, you know, I will never, and if I was still in, you know, that is something that would continue to go up the chain of command until we got something resolved there. Thanks for the question, Michelle.
And Michelle, trust is you are absolutely right when it comes to trust. There's some folks, once they lose that trust, and I guess I shouldn't even use the most. Once you lose trust in somebody or something, an organization, it is super, super hard to get that back. So you are absolutely right. And I have personally experienced it for me, to be honest with you, as a chief, I totally lost faith in one of my commanders, you know, and I had to deal with, okay, am I going to get another assignment? Am I going to do something? But also at the CEM level, I got to make sure I'm taking care of my folks. So my squadron didn't know I had issues with my commander. But I lost faith in his ability because bottom line is, as some of you have said through here, it was the mission and what we were doing was more important than these folks that literally deployed. They would deploy 11 months out of the year, come back, they'd be back for 6 months, and they'd be on rotation again. So it is really, really hard to get that back. And the thing for you is they making sure they don't lose that trust in you. I'll say it again. Make sure they don't lose that trust in you. And that, you know, they have to see that you're being honest with them. You're not being wishy-washy. You know, the first time they see you laughing about something, or if they believe that you are backing the individual and not them, there's there's ways to say, hey, look, I got your back, but we have to do what the boss says without throwing the boss under the bus, because you'll lose respect from that person and other people when you do that too, because you're supposed to have faith in your leadership. And when they say you lost faith in your leadership, then there is absolutely nothing you're going to do to get that back. So take your time and really think about how you engage those scenarios and those situations. Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, Fletch Hall, that's a cool name. I'm not sure if I got the first name or last name right, but Fletch Hall sounds cool. If it isn't, I'd go with that.
Works for me, sir.
Hey, man. Hey, so your question was about, you know, and you were highlighting that SOCOM has a pretty good program, and my information's a little dated, right? But I'll be honest with you, when I was still in, the Air Force was modeling what SOCOM and what Special Operations Command Air Force was doing as well. So they were stealing a lot of what those folks were doing and trying to implement some of that. And some of it's really small things. Like, I think there's some folks that were in intel squadrons. I think some of our RPA squadrons still have mental health folks embedded in the squadrons. So we're taking small steps and doing some things in that aspect. But rest assured, when I was in a couple years ago, they were looking to steal some of the good ideas from those places that were doing some things that were really good. So I think that's working its way, but I think we need to do more. Thanks for the question.
Hey, Sergeant Wentworth, how much time do we have left?
You still have 16 minutes, Chief.
All right, perfect. All right, so who wants to talk about evals? Anybody? Raise your hand. Yeah. All right, so almost everybody that sent us something talked about evals, and I would tell you that most folks, it seems, are worried, concerned about evals because of future boards. You have to get to know how to write EPRs. And you know what? Everybody is not good at writing. Everybody's not good at articulating. You know, I remember as a tech sergeant sitting at Barksdale, there was a master sergeant. That dude was magical. You know, you don't have to put all these fancy words. You have to be able to put on there what a person does. And sometimes what a person does and the importance of what they do and the impact, you know, nothing is ever going to change. I want to know what you did, how you did it, what's the impact, period. Nothing is going to change on that. But how do you take a paragraph of what somebody did and put it in this one bullet? That's always been the issue, you know. And the thing is you've got to find the people that know how to write. So, you know, most of the people that ask this question are asking the question because they don't write good. And then when their EPRs for a really good airman or yourself goes up against somebody that they see gets promoted and you didn't, and you know that, man, my airman was so much better than that airman. And when I talk about airman, I'm talking big A, right? But I just didn't write it well. You know, again, we had writing boards. And when I would do as the chief of the 726 there in Mountain Home, I would do writing boards that wasn't mandatory, so that the people that really wanted to learn and push their airmen and push themselves would come into the room. And out of my 800 folks, how many people would you have thought would show? I would think that I had 125 seats personally. I would think I'd have 125 people there, but things are more important to them. Sometimes mission related things. And I always do it at lunch. They could bring their lunch and they can do certain things. But we might have 10 or 15 people in there. So then it got to the point where I started making it mandatory. So by section, I would do it by section, and I would do it, you know, by shop. Because I can't get everybody in there, because it is important for you to know how to write. And then your EPRs. Bottom line is right now it is board only, and if your package that needs to be sustained, how awesome you are for the past 5 to 10 years. They need to be good, well-written EPRs. And then some of you have talked to me about, somebody sent me a message and talked about, you know, PT and scores, and somebody fails. Do they have to get, you know, right? We used to have to do a referral EPR on them, and now, unless something's changed in the last 2 years, now it's up to the commander, it's up to the supervisor whether they do a referral. Well, some people are hard-nosed, old school, as you would say, and they're getting a referral EPR. And then other folks aren't. So now somebody gets promoted that has a PT fail over somebody that didn't. So why did they fail PT? Are they lazy? Are you, and I'll throw this out, are you all doing PT the way that you should when most of you aren't going to work every single day? Just hypothetical. But I know what I see here in the Eglin Herbert area. There's some chunky chickens that used to be really, really fit and healthy. They used to do PT every day, but we keep on bumping that line, so they don't have that goal to meet, and they're not doing the things that they can. So, but again, should it be part of the EPR? Personally, I think that it should be, based on the situation. You know, if somebody is dealing with PTSD or if they're dealing with certain things, they just lost a family member, you know, they could put them in a spiral of depression and PTSD. Maybe not, but then how do you make that fair for everybody else? There needs to be a solid line on the PT piece. Mental health folks. Somebody sent me an email, and basically it said eval related. They were seeking help, and when they were seeking help, they were basically they were downgraded on their EPR, and basically they were told that they were downgraded only because they couldn't do their job because they were seeking mental health guidance. What a bunch of whoo-wee. You know, that stuff just makes me ill, and I'm sure it doesn't help your mental state when that sort of thing happens. But the bottom line is it happened. It happens. You have to get over it, and you have to press on. You know, hopefully you can find something else. You can get a new job. You know, most of us don't have the same supervisor, same commander for more than 2 years. So unless you're a guard or reserve person, then maybe so.
Okay, so the only thing I would add about EPRs and stuff like that, having sat on boards, is for the life of me, and I'm guilty of this early in my career, I don't understand how we wait till 2 weeks before the EPR is due to all of a sudden now try to write something that is probably the most important thing to ourselves and our individual airmen that we're responsible for, that we wait till 2 weeks before it's due to now all of a sudden try to scramble because, you know, everyone's got suspenses and it's backed up and it's this and that. To me, you know, we should be fine tuning someone's EPR bullets as soon as the action happens, and fine tuning that and making sure it's impactful and it's saying the right things and doing all. We do that for these papers we write for school. I don't understand why we don't work and spend more time taking care of our airmen unless that's just a buzzword and we really don't mean it.
Right.
It's more infuriating to me when I was the command chief to have someone come in the office and say, oh, I got to finish up this EPR. And I want to say, you take care of your airmen, right? Why are you just now waiting the last 2 weeks and on day 340 of the year to now all of a sudden you're going to figure out to write the most important thing that matters to your airmen to take care of them? So that needs to stop because we rush it, right? You know, we all know we did these papers, we rushed it and turned it in and what kind of grade we got. And then we all know when we didn't rush it and we really focused on it and we turned it in, what kind of grade we got. And that needs to apply to our EPRs because, again, what's the most important thing? Taking care of our airmen. But the most important thing to take care of them, we rush it in 2 weeks versus spending time throughout the year doing it. Okay, I feel better. I got that off my chest.
All right, there you go. Hey, thank you, buddy. Hey, so let me tell you a couple things that the folks used to get furious with me over, and it was all about taking care of airmen. And this can be at every single level. And I did it. I did it starting as a staff sergeant all the way up until I retired from the NCO Academy there at Peterson. I require people to give me bullets. I created this little document, said, "What'd you do?" It's an Excel document. What'd you do? How'd you do it? And what's the impact? And then I also, when I was in comm, I created this little document that basically said, what did you do? What was the cost? How many people impacted? Basically everything within the comm world. So if I went to building 800 at base X, there's 18 people in that building and they fixed a switch. So 18 people were helped. How much was the switch, right? So in your job, you can come up with however it is that you want. But every single Friday before people went home from work, they had to do 2 bullets of something that they did through the week. And then as time went on, that I say time, as I grew in rank and grew in maturity, I would say, okay, now the people that want to do that, you can, and then you don't everybody doesn't have to do it, because if I'm making them do it, I'm making a supervisor with an airman that don't give a crap about their own career do all of this work. So I started making it voluntary. So now fast forward up to a new unit. I decided this new unit, what I was going to do was I was going to tell everybody this exact same thing, and whoever came to me personally as their chief, I was going to help them with their EPRs. But so it started with, I would guide them. Okay, what's your goals? What do you want this year? Do you want to be Airman of the Quarter? Do you want to be Airman of the Year? Do you want one of our technical awards that we have? What do you want? Because those awards are important too, and there's absolutely nobody out there that can deny somebody that wins awards over somebody that doesn't when it comes to stratifications. Once you get in the senior NCO rank, those things are important, just like your job is. And oh, by the way, doing volunteer work should never be the pinnacle of what you do to get a great EPR. It should be a little piece of it. You get one bullet on your EPR. You shouldn't be volunteering all the dang time. So, real life scenario. There was an airman. He came to me. He said, Chief, I really want to win a Corps. I've never won a Corley Award. I really want to win a Corley Award. So what do I need to do to win this Corley Award? Now, I offer this to 800 people that I would do this for them, and I would help their supervisor do this. Guess how many people came to me in this one quarter? One. This airman did what he needed to do, and when his package came up, now I didn't write his package because that wouldn't be fair, and I purposely said, if anybody does this, I will not sit on the board for the awards board. This airman's package blew everybody away. So guess what happened? Everybody said, well, Chief Wooden, this is his favorite airman. He's helping this airman. He's not helping us. After he won the award. They never said that until he won the award. So being involved with your airmen and trying to take care of your airmen is very important. Come up with ways to do it. But you can set up paths. What do you want to do? I need for you to do 10 work things, 10 work-related things have great impacts. I need you to do one volunteer thing. I need you to be involved, somebody downtown, yada, 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 yada. You can set up paths, but you have to be involved. And oh, by the way, it's work. It ain't easy. Go ahead, buddy.
Hey, so I know you got a lot of time. I want to say thank you to the Academy staff for allowing us old guys to come in and say a few words. I really appreciate it. So tech sergeants, master sergeants, soon to be. So lead them well. Today's environment is very difficult to lead in. With everything that's going on in our world and everything that's happening, it is not easy. But at the end of the day, we are the world's best Air Force because of you and those like you. Continue to lead them and continue to take our Air Force to newer and greater heights. And I'm proud to be able to sit back on my rocker here in Virginia outside Langley and watch today's leaders lead our Air Force. It's not going to be easy, but make a difference. And remember, where's your smoke pit?
Yep. Hey, and everyone, I just put my phone number down in the screen. If you all are really concerned with talking to someone or about any of these issues, that's my cell phone. I've had that cell phone for 13 years now. You can call me. I don't plan on changing it. You can call me and talk to me about whatever it's about. But this is what I'll tell you. I've dealt with every aspect of PTSD, suicide, depression, anxiety for the things that are hurting our airmen and killing our airmen today. You are more than welcome to call me at any time and speak about anything that you need to. Look, you all are where the Air Force. You are the core of our Air Force right now as our technical sergeants, period. And if your attitude is going to define where we go now. Your attitude is going to define what your airmen are doing for you. Take care of your airmen. Lead your airmen well. The only way that you can take care of your airmen the way that you really need to, and this is from my mistakes, this is where this is coming from, is to get help if you need help. And if you can't get help on base, then go somewhere else and get help. There are a lot of organizations out there, mental health organizations. You can reach out to me. I will find something for you to be able to get your help that you need. All right? Again, Sheppard NCOA Academy, thank you for reaching out and letting us speak to you. You all had some fantastic speakers in this class. I hear Chief Neary is speaking next week, I think. What an amazing speaker. You know, really drill down, talk to him about cars. Ask him a car question. That'll get him spun up. All right, y'all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief Master Sergeant Hutchison and Chief Master Sergeant Wooden for your time today. Class 49-7, go ahead and take a 10-minute break and report back to your flight leads.
All right, thank you all. Take care.
Have a great one.
See you, Bob. I'll call you later, bro.